What's going on, everybody? It's your boy KRYPTONIAN saying here, bringing you guys another Chainsaw Man chapter review for chapter 116. And man, did Fujimoto decide to cook in this one, because we got the confirmation that Denji was going to tell Mitaka everything about Nayuta, and we're seeing the signs that Denji and Mitaka, there might actually be something there. At the very least, it's going to be friendship based. And after everything our boy Denji went through at the end of part 1 of Chainsaw Man, from losing Aki and Power, two people who were like family to him, and losing Makima, someone he had a very complicated relationship with. The smile that we saw in Denji's face in this chapter, it hit home a lot differently in so many different ways. You can tell that Fujimoto is preparing our boy for another crushing heartbreak later on down the line. However, let's back things up a little bit and get into the review itself. So the chapter opens up with Denji and Mitaka sitting in the tank while Kobine's brother is licking the glass on the tank, and we see Mitaka once again turning into the Discovery Channel, breaking down the different types of starfish, and Denji finds a starfish that she can actually eat. That's when our favorite degenerate Denji truly begins to shine, because he takes Mitaka into another room and says that he's got a pot lid to boil the starfish in, and he's got a lighter. And it's then that we start getting into some of the meat of the chapter, just as these two are about to start chomping down on literal meat, because Denji reveals the reason why he's so obsessed with money in part 2 of Chainsaw Man. So whereas I thought he was just letting women sit on him for money because the kid was just horny and down bad, and knowing Denji, that might have been part of the reason, but the true reason Denji's doing whatever he can to make money is because he's trying to give Nayuta a better life. Now, this right here is Fujimoto not only subverting our expectations once again by giving Mitaka a glimpse into Denji's heart by revealing that he's caring for Nayuta, but also is potentially setting up the twist with the four horsemen of devils. Nayuta, at the end of the day, is the reborn control devil, and Denji is looking after her, trying to give her a better life and a different life than Makima had, so as to prevent her from turning out to become another Makima. In Chainsaw Man chapter 97, we were told as much by Kishibe, telling Denji the reason why he was giving Denji Nayuta and not over to the government was for this reason here. And we also saw Pochita telling Denji to care for Nayuta, and in this chapter we see that he's very much taken Pochita's words to heart, with Denji already thinking about her future. Denji is emotionally invested in her. Now we have two of the four horsemen of devil introduced in part 2 of the story, with Fami and Yoru in the story, and he appears to be getting closer to Mitaka. At this point, you're either hoping Fujimoto doesn't rip out Denji's heart, or if he does rip out the heart, you're hoping that Nayuta sides with Denji, win the issue with the other horsemen, or rather horsewomen, since the theme appears to all women, once that actually comes into the story as a main conflict. You can tell Mitaka hears Denji's story and his reasoning, and just by look on her face, in particular the eyes, there's emotion building up inside of her. Denji isn't nowhere near as bad as she initially thought, and even when she tried to rationalize on how to turn him into a weapon a few chapters ago, and they had their brief spats here or there, this changes all of that. Denji, out of all the people she considered turning into a weapon, is proving himself to have potentially the best heart out of all of them, despite all of his unfavorable personality traits. It's then we see Fujimoto back at work with some great use of paneling here. It's just Denji and Mitaka opening up the starfish in order to eat them, but there's so much good going on here. The first thing that might be a stroke of accidental brilliance, but when you look at the last page, when you see Denji and Mitaka in equal panel sizes, as he's talking about Nayuta, and the page directly following that, when Denji is breaking bread, so to speak, with Mitaka by sharing food with her and sitting down with her as an equal, bonding with her, accepting her. In chapter 97, Pochita says that the control devil always wanted to have an equal relationship with others, one that isn't based off of fear or manipulation, but something purely like family. In these panels, we see Denji given a similar panel size as Mitaka as they're eating together. It's small, but it goes a long way because it shows the unselfish side of Denji coming out to help someone else, the same way that he spoke of helping Nayuta, because we know based off of his reaction, Denji is not a fan of how the starfish tasted. That makes the whole thing with equal really and truly hit home as much as it does, because while Mitaka isn't somebody that has that connection to the control devil per se, Denji's still applying the same things that he would have applied with someone like Nayuta. So I thought that that was nice right there. Now, the other thing here is that Mitaka's eyes are just so well done here. There's so much that you can gather from her in this moment before she even speaks. The way she looks down apprehensive, the way that the eyes are lighter and wider as she lifts the starfish up to her mouth and begins to bite into it. Then how she closes one eye, and then in the next panel, it shows half her face before she says it's not enough. It's great paneling here. That one panel right before she says it's not enough, it really grabbed my attention. Half of Mitaka's face isn't showing, just as half of Mitaka isn't there because Yoru is gone. She says it's not enough. Fami, the famine devil, wanted to cause hunger to push her towards making a weapon. And we see Mitaka reach a point where she throws away her views on fish to be willing to eat them. She's crossing lines that she might not have crossed before, like we see her going through collecting money that doesn't belong to her with Denji. It's a great escalation here when you look at all of this, from the fish to the stealing to the way that she's bonding with Denji. You're seeing those lines slowly begin to blur. Maybe not in the way that Fami intended, but they're blurring nonetheless. However, hidden beneath all that playful banner that we get with Mitaka and Denji, it's more foreshadow. Mitaka moving away from her position to not eat fish foreshadows her trying to make a weapon with the aquarium at the end of the chapter, which this should be the first time that she's made a weapon without Yoru prompting her, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the banter back and forth was clearly a nod towards the future plot that we have to address, which is going to be the Blood Devil returning at some point in the story, because Denji obviously compared Mitaka to power when Mitaka began with those loud boasts of hers and the pointing and the over-the-top actions. Not to say that I expect Denji to meet the reincarnated Blood Devil anytime soon. That's clearly some long-term booking because we know he has to keep his promise to power, but I do think that Fujimoto is nodding towards the readers to say, trust me, I haven't forgotten that huge plot point from the end of part 1. In fact, Fujimoto was clearly pulling on that Denji and power relationship to hit readers with a bit of nostalgia. When we see the two of them running around the aquarium collecting money and laughing it up, it's doing two things. It's bringing together two people who a few chapters ago, if you told any of us they would have passed the vibe check, we'd be screaming cap right now. But now there's chemistry there, and we even see Mitaka blushing when she looks over at Denji, and we see Denji grinning that wicked grin of his, which is the second thing here. Denji looks like the old Denji here. It's only for brief moments, but he's got that goofy look I remember from part 1 when he was around Aki and Power. However, the horny side of Denji is still there and very much in effect, because when Mitaka says that she offers to do anything for the money that they collected, Denji doesn't hesitate to give it over, which makes me wonder, do Denji and Mitaka have the same definition of anything? The chapter ends off with Mitaka trying to make an aquarium sphere by offering to buy the aquarium with the 1 million yen that she's collected and touching the glass. Look, this chapter clearly foreshadowed and showed the bond between Mitaka and Denji deepening to a point where I don't think any of us would be shocked if they become lovers in some portion of the story, but with a chapter as wholesome and feel good in nature as this one, to a point where you think like, oh, Chainsaw Man's becoming a rom-com, you can't help but feel like there's a knife floating in the blind spot that you won't see until it's too late. Like, look at the irony here, in particular the dramatic irony that we have as an audience, because we know stuff that the characters in universe don't. These two, they're clearly vibing together, they're bonding. Mitaka shares her body with Yoru, who is the war devil, who also wants to kill Denji, who is the Chainsaw Man. This is not going to end well. This is Fujimoto clearly getting ready to rip our hearts out at some point in the story. Just comes down to how soon is he going to do it. The fact that Yoru wants Mitaka to turn Denji into a weapon so she can kill Chainsaw Man is another thing to factor in. At some point, all this is going to come out, and for all we know, since Denji is Chainsaw Man, there might be a chance that she can't turn him into a weapon either, and that goes into the battle that we're probably going to see. There are so many layers to this. Fujimoto is just pure evil for what he's doing here, and I absolutely love it, because if there's one thing you know about Chainsaw Man from part 1, it's that no character is truly safe. My chapter question to you guys is, how strong do you think this aquarium spear is going to be? Is that going to be enough to be a substitute for a weapon that Yoru wanted from killing Denji and making him into a weapon, since Mitaka likely is going to feel guilty about turning the whole aquarium into a spear? Or do you think that's not going to be enough, but due to the circumstances they find themselves in, do you also think that she might not be able to turn the aquarium into a weapon either? While you think that over, click here to watch my other Chainsaw Man videos you see on the screen right now.